I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Okay, so yes, there was some background noise and it's gone now. So that okay, so let's start with a short meditation, just to settle body, speech, and mind, and arrive in our present moment, or as Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh often says, to come home, arrive in our true home, which is always with us, always within us in the shape of our own true nature. So that's what we try to return back to when we connect with ourselves in meditation, coming back to our true home. So start by making sure you're sitting reasonably upright and just have a comfortable, relaxed posture. It's good to maybe take a few moments and notice if we're holding any tensions anywhere. So, for example, we can just pay attention to our face and allow it to smoothen. Sometimes we have that little wrinkle between the eyes. Just allow that to soften. And just imagine our face being like the face of a sleeping baby with no worries, no concerns, just relaxed and at ease. Let's see if we can have that kind of feeling or sensation in our face. And also allowing our shoulders to drop down, releasing any tension that is there. And also as a way of settling our body in a more relaxed state, we can turn our attention to the breathing. Allowing our attention to rest on the rhythm of the breath. Noticing air as it flows in. Maybe there's a short pause and then noticing the air as it flows back out. And just allowing the breathing to follow its natural rhythm. We're not trying to breathe in any particular way, slowly or deeply, or just allow it to find a natural rhythm. But often our mental state is reflected in the breath. So if we're agitated, the breath tends to get shallower, more rapid. So just by paying close attention to the breath, we can also tune into our mental states in this moment. And then we use the breath as an anchor for our attention. If there are a lot of thoughts, memories, impulses swirling in our mind, we can just allow them to fade into the background and move our breath into the foreground. Like when we're in love and we're giving all our attention to our beloved and everything else just fades into the background. See if you can bring that kind of attention to the sensation of the breath. Curiosity, warmth. See if you can be intrigued by how it actually feels to breathe. Allow each breath to be a reminder of just the preciousness of this moment of awareness. There is no deeper mystery anywhere than the fact that we have this conscious experience. We are aware. And that mystery is unfolding right now, moment to moment. Okay, and then with that, we can end this brief meditation, and return our attention back to this shared meeting. Yeah. So I thought I would start today just to say a few words about, I guess, finding a true spiritual path, or finding a valid way of exploring inner development and cultivating good inner qualities. And obviously, showing up for this thing, I suppose you're either probably viewing yourselves as Buddhist, or at least you're definitely interested in the Buddhist path and Buddhist philosophy, psychology, and the spiritual path of Buddhism. But it's good to know that the word for the Buddhist path or Dharma is it's usually said that the Buddha was not Buddhist, which is obviously true, but the Buddha came to certain insights, where he had some direct realizations. He saw that these things is what I've seen, and then kind of presents them as, hypotheses for us to explore on our own. And obviously he was very adamant that none of what he was saying was to be taken at, as dogma or with blind faith or just believing anything because he said it or anyone else said it. So we were really encouraged by the Buddha to explore, all aspects of these teachings for ourselves. And obviously it's also the case that that Dharma, in the sense of truth, in the sense of what frees us from mental afflictions and what contributes to genuine and stable well-being and so on, what ultimately leads us to freedom, that is not, Dharma in that respect is not necessarily a Buddhist trip or a Buddhist thing. There is Dharma in all the world religions. There's Dharma to be found in secular paths as well. If you're an atheist, if you're religious, if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, Jew, whatever, there will be Dharma to be found in all those traditions. So the question is, how do we know if we found a valid spiritual path? Because obviously there is a lot of religion that causes a lot of problems, and there's a lot of dogma and fanaticism and clinging to one's view as being supreme or correct or the only view. So I think the Dalai Lama often says that if you're born into a certain religious tradition, there's no and you feel a connection to that religious tradition, you shouldn't, even though you're inspired by the teachings of the Buddha, there's you don't necessarily have to give up your the religious context from into which you were born. Rather, you can incorporate whatever tools or methods or teachings that you find useful into that spiritual path. I just had the opportunity to listen to a few talks by a woman named Eva Natanya, who is a really deep and devout Christian, but also a great yogi in the Tibetan tradition, and also a great scholar in the Tibetan tradition. And it was just quite fascinating listening to how she drew on the deepest teachings from Christianity and the deep teachings from the Tibetan tradition, and how she could really marry them together, and how they seem to come together in a really beautiful way. So I mean, there's many ways to find the spiritual path that is most suitable for us, regardless of what that might be. But so the question is, how do we what criteria can we use to test whether the path we're on is actually a valid path? And I remember reading many years ago, I read a book where Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche was talking on meditation, and he was asked, so what is the actual purpose of meditation? And he said, well, the purpose is to develop compassion, to become ever more compassionate in the world. That would ultimately be the reason to meditate. And I think the first criteria of any spiritual path would be, I think, ethics or an ethical behavior. So by practicing our path, are we becoming ever more harmless? Because that would be the very first, for me, the first definition of ethical behavior, not causing harm to ourselves and others. So is there an increasing sense of nonviolence in our behavior, an increasing sense of care and concern, and just an increasing level of harmlessness? So that, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, the first level, at least we shouldn't harm others. And then adding to that, if we can also try to be of benefit, but that sometimes require more wisdom. So the first criteria is this path that I'm pursuing. Is it making me more ethical? Is it making me more harmless in the world towards myself and others? And then, different religious systems will have different ethical systems and different systems of morals. But on this level, I think they all can agree that ethics is about causing less harm in the world, controlling body, speech, and mind, as a Buddhist might put it. So that's the first criteria. And then the second criteria is whether following this spiritual path is decreasing the amount of afflictions that are in our minds. So afflictions being things like anger, irritation, resentment, jealousy, pride, malice, greed, and so on and so forth. So we have these states of mind that are not very helpful, that are not very beneficial, that are causing harm and suffering, first of all in our own minds, but then they're also causing us to spew out things into the world that is not very helpful. So a lot of these afflictions are like contagious viruses. So if we're not aware even of having them, we just go around causing tremendous trouble in the world and suffering while we're at it. And of course, there's a lot of schools of thought, and modern psychology is sometimes one of them, where these afflictions are just seen as necessary, even, or at least unavoidable parts of what it means to be human. But I think that any deeper spiritual path would necessarily have to acknowledge the opportunity that is there for us to really transform those afflictive states of mind and ultimately rid our minds of them, because they're not inherent to the core of our being. It's like polluted water. We can extract the pollutants, and what we will be left with is pure unpolluted water. So the anger, the greed, the confusion, all of these things are not core to who we are, and therefore they can also be removed or transformed. So that would be the second criteria of a valid spiritual path, that it actually contributes to that. It actually limits or lessens the amount of affliction that is in our mind. And then the third criteria would be the opposite of that, meaning that the spiritual path we're practicing also leads to an increased amount of virtue or positive states of mind. So, and those of course would be the things like generosity, loving kindness, compassion, care, forgiveness, or even gratitude, or all the beautiful states of mind, the things that just by the mere presence of them in our mind leads to happiness, or in a sense they are happiness. Experiencing true generosity is to experience a happy state of mind, and experiencing a deep sense of benevolence is to be happy. It is directly connected to joy and happiness, whereas of course the afflictions that we mentioned are directly connected to suffering and misery and discontent and so on. So yeah, so that's the third criteria. The spiritual path we're following, does it make us more virtuous over time, or does it contribute to the increase of these beautiful qualities in our mind? More equanimity, more contentment, more balance. And then, even on a more mundane level, are they making us more focused, more present with the ones we love, and so on? So those would be, the main things. Are we becoming more ethical? Are we lessening the degree to which our minds are afflicted? And are we seeing an increase in the virtuous, beautiful qualities of mind? And then the fourth one would be related to wisdom. So by practicing this spiritual path, are we continuously seeing ourselves and the world more and more clearly? And wisdom can be defined in many ways, but I think a very practical way of defining wisdom is, if we're a wise person, we're looking in every moment, we're looking to the good of the many, instead of just the good of me. So where wisdom means to be motivated by bringing benefit to as many beings as possible, rather than just bringing benefit to me, or potentially my family, my clan, my country. Just having a more vast vision in that respect, that's wisdom. And wisdom is also, rather than being motivated or driven by short-term consequences in our behavior, we have a really vast long-term view. That's also wisdom. So we're acting in the interest of many, and we're acting with a really long-term view. That's a simple, straightforward definition of wisdom, I think. And so then we can check, is the spiritual path we're following, the practices we're doing, are they contributing to more wisdom in that sense? Are they making our perspective more and more narrow, self-centered and limited, or are they making our perspective more and more vast and open and long-term? And then, of course, on a deeper level, wisdom is also about seeing the true nature of reality, seeing the true nature of mind and consciousness, seeing emptiness directly, seeing dependent origination directly, and so on. But I don't think we even have to go to like that level of depth. I think that the definition of wisdom I just gave is quite sufficient, at least when we're stepping onto and embarking on a spiritual practice or a spiritual path, as a way of just checking to see, are we in a good path here? Or are we tricking ourselves, or being tricked by someone? And that's also really important. You should always look to the proponents of whatever spiritual tradition you're following, like the practitioners of that tradition. What kind of qualities are they manifesting or embodying? What is it to be around one of those practitioners? Are they radiating the very qualities that I mentioned, or are they seemingly driven by other motivations? So that's a really good way of like a litmus test for any spiritual practice or tradition, just looking at the teachers of that tradition, or historically looking at the saints that sprung forth from that tradition, whether it's Buddhist yogis or Christian saints or whatever it might be, because that's an indication of a genuine path, because that path has produced these masters in the past, and also hopefully some of them are still walking amongst us, so we can turn to them and really determine the validity of the teachings that they're sharing with us. So yes, this is the last of this this set of be your own therapist session. So I thought this might be I wanted to share this just as a way of moving forward, I guess, because I don't even, and I haven't, that's because I haven't asked of the participants, but I don't know if you consider yourself Buddhist or if you're coming from other traditions and just have an interest in Buddhist psychology and philosophy as a way of working with whatever challenges you find in your life. But I just wanted to share this as a way of determining, whatever spiritual path you're on, as a way of determining whether it is an authentic and really solid one or not. And putting it really briefly, if whatever you're doing, if it's making you more compassionate and more wise, then you're on a good track. So just keep doing whatever you're doing, because it's obviously working. And yeah, so maybe I'll stop there for a bit and just see if there are any, if that has stirred any questions or comments or observations so far, and then maybe we can take it from there.
I kind of feel like I'm cheating when I don't research my teachers, because I feel like the FPMT has kind of already done that for me. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I guess that's the benefit of a lineage, because we have this, we have access to more teachings than any generation ever. There's so much stuff out there, from the self-help books to the I don't know, you can just pick, and many people tend to pick and choose and grab this and that, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. You can try out the tools of various traditions, but there is definitely a benefit to sticking to something that has a solid lineage, where you know this teacher that I'm listening to right now, his teacher was that teacher, and then that goes back in an unbroken line all the way to the Buddha, in the case of the FPMT. And that's something really there's something really good in having a lineage in that way. But again, you still have to do your due diligence, because you still have to make sure that you trust that lineage and that responsibility always falls on you, the practitioner, and always checking, even if the FPMT is a reputable organization with amazing teachers, it's always still feel because not all teachings are also suitable for all students. So even though a teacher might be giving this amazing, really solid teaching, maybe it doesn't resonate with us because of our tendencies, because of where we are right now. So maybe there are other things that we should be listening to or should be doing right now. Maybe we can come back to whatever this is later. So it's they say, if the Buddha is offering 84,000 teachings, that's like 84,000 different types of medicine. But we don't necessarily eat all the different kinds of medicine at the same time. Depending on what is ailing us, there will be one type of medicine that is suitable at that moment. And sometimes we want to run ahead and get to the higher, more advanced teachings, perhaps, but maybe we should stick with the basics for the moment, and so on and so forth. So it always comes back to to it being our responsibility to to make sure our practice is the right one.
I'm from more of a contemplative Catholic background, Martin, but not in a doctrinaire way, because I'm also an atheist. And I'm more aligned with Buddhism right now. It works out better for me. I have a friend, my really good friend from Iran. She's, I think she identifies as Sufi Muslim. And it's a very, very spiritual, in some ways it reminds me of Buddhism. It's a very beautiful religion. Although I don't identify that way, but she does, and it's good for
her. And is there anything from your originally Christian background that you find helpful, or have you, I don't know, tossed all of it out? I don't know if that's the correct term, but is there anything that has been helpful for you from that tradition?
Not really. I don't identify as a Christian. I really don't believe the things they believe, except the contemplative, side of the Catholic Church is very spiritual. And so, but somehow it merges into Buddhism in a really nice way. So I would have to say that Buddhism has helped me in practical ways much more than Catholicism ever did. As far as its psychology, its the spiritual focus in it, and everything about it. It aligns in a way, yet not in a way, because the Catholic Church, obviously Christian, they believe in God, and I don't believe in that God that way. So Buddhism is more real to me.
I'm the same way with the Christian. I was raised pretty strict Episcopalian, Church of England, and I got my first feelings of bliss at the altar. So that I took away from it, but it seemed to make me feel too guilty about everything, and like I was bad, and just like, even though I got some discipline out of it, and but Buddhism doesn't have that effect on me, and I actually became a better person when I started practicing Buddhism, and that's why I stick with it. I wouldn't call myself a Christian in any way, because I never believed that Jesus was my savior, ever. I never believed that. In fact, when I was 12, I tried to convert to Judaism because I wanted to go straight to God. And now I don't believe in any God. Buddhism is perfect for me in that way. But I don't diss any other religion. Each their own. I'm glad I found something that works for me. And I practice a little bit of Hinduism as well. So I'm not the best Buddhist either, but pretty close.
Yeah. It's interesting that you had that you did have a spiritual experience, like this experience of a bliss in that context, that because that in any respect, that would be a taste of quality of mind that maybe in everyday life we don't really connect with. So that would have shown you that there are deeper dimensions to what it means to being a human being, that's in itself is amazing. So and I find that it seems like, if you get the mystics of all the traditions, you get your Christian mystics and your Sufis and your Jewish mystics and so on, and you can stick some Taoist mystics and so on in there. And if you get those people together, they seem to agree an awful lot. You know, they have different words and concepts, but like the experience and the taste of that experience seems to be rather similar. And they you know, they can talk to each other and say, yeah, that's I recognize that, we do it this way, and you know, whatever. But they seem to agree, and there's really no you know, the times I've witnessed discussions like that among mystics, they have always been in, you know, deep agreement, and there's been no animosity, and you know, no problem really. But then, you know, if you go up from, so there's this mystical experience, I think, at the core of every religion and every spiritual path, but then that has to be cloaked in concepts and ideas, and you know, in order to so that it can be conveyed to others. So then you kind of go up, and then you come to a really a level where religion just becomes a bunch of dogmas and concepts and a set of rules. You know, don't do this, don't do that, and then, you know, along comes the guilt trip and all of that stuff. And then, you know, people see that, oh, my concepts are very different than your concepts, so maybe I should go ahead and kill you, because you know, obviously my concepts are the right ones, and my dogma is the only way, and so on. But that's at a very, you know, superficial level of religion, and that's where all the problems come. But I find it's like, you know, poles going into the ground deeper and deeper, and they seem to converge. I don't know if they converge completely, but they seem to converge an awful lot when you look at the mystical levels of all the religions. So I don't know if you would you agree with that assertion?
I do. I completely agree with that assertion. For instance, in the Catholic Church, the mystics used to be heavily persecuted. You know, they were punished and imprisoned, some of them. And the higher you go toward fundamentalism in just about any religion, the more it gets like what you just said. They want to war with each other. They want to impose their doctrine. They become very doctrinaire, fundamentalist. And that's territory I definitely like to stay away from.
Yeah, and it's good to know also that, you know, the Buddha very clearly said that, you know, don't grasp onto any view, including Buddhism. And one of the, you know, one of the biggest pitfalls you could fall into is to hold your own views as supreme, as the Buddha put it, even if those views, you know, tend to align with Buddhist teaching. So it's because they are not ultimately true. They are, you know, they are provisionally true. So all the teachings of the Buddha have provisional value in helping us cultivating, you know, the very things I mentioned at the beginning. But the Buddha had this image of, you know, you want to cross a lake or cross a stream. So then, you know, for crossing, you will need some kind of vessel, like a boat. You know, you need your canoe or your raft, or you know, whatever it might be. So then, you know, you get on your canoe and you get across to the other shore. And then once you've crossed, then you don't pick up your canoe and carry it with you as you move on from there. You leave it behind. And obviously the canoe in that parable is the teachings, you know, the conceptually formulated dharmas. So they help you get to the other shore and get to the shore of enlightenment. But once you're there, you can just let them go, because they were never anything other than provisional truths that were necessary for you to develop on the path, but they are not to be taken as solid concrete dogma that are ultimately true. They are just they are methods to be used and then let go of once they've served their purpose. But people get awfully attached to their canoes or their rafts or whatever it is. And I mean, obviously, using the same metaphor, you can get across the river on a variety of different types of vessels. They all can serve that purpose, and once you're across, then they serve their purpose. But people tend to get really uptight about their canoe being much more much better than anyone else's. So so the point being that even if we find that Buddhist teachings are just tremendously, we just resonate so deeply with them and they're so helpful, we still need to be really careful that we don't cling on to them as absolute truth. And even seeing that just because they have been so helpful to me doesn't mean they'll be as helpful to someone else. So sometimes it's better to, if someone's a really devout Christian that we know, it's better to support them in their practice and encourage that rather than trying to, like convert them to our worldview or convert them to Buddhism. So there are many traps to fall into once we've fallen in love with something like Buddhist practice, and we see how much immense benefit it has brought us. That's when we can fall into the trap of trying to convert others or become dogmatic or preachy or fundamentalist. So we should always hold even Buddhist teachings very lightly and know that they are provisional, not absolute.
When I'm around other religious beliefs, I tend to blend into them. I'm even thinking of going to the menorah lighting for for Hanukkah. The last day of Hanukkah is on Christmas this year, and I'm actually thinking of just kind of unofficially celebrating each day of Hanukkah, not because I'm Jewish, but because I want to. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that sounds beautiful. Sometimes I think, because I mean, I'm not Christian, and no one else in my family is Christian either, but we still celebrate Christmas, and part of that is having grown up with the tradition of practice or celebrating Christmas, but also you can also make that the original purpose of Christmas wasn't necessarily giving lots of presents to people and seeing friends and family and eating lots of good food, although those things are wonderful to do together. But you can also make it an opportunity to really remember the qualities that Jesus embodied, whether you're Christian or not. You can, from a Buddhist perspective, it's quite easy. You could view Jesus Christ as a bodhisattva or a bringer of definitely a bringer of Dharma, and then that can be your motivation for practicing Christmas, even though you're not necessarily a Christian. So maybe there are also maybe too few holidays in Buddhism, and I'm not culturally sure really how to celebrate any of them really. So maybe that's why I'm sticking with Christmas.
Well, I think Christmas actually has its roots in a pagan religion, the return of light to the world after the darkness of winter, the return of light. And so many religions have that celebration of light. Like, is it Hinduism? They have the Diwali or something, festival of light. And many, I think many do. So it just seems, it seems like something that changes. It changes through time. Yeah, to me, Christmas was always just family holiday, not a religious one.
Well, this is the darkest time of the year, and all those lights really help cheer it up a little bit. I've got them going in my room. I've got the little lights. I've got multicolored candles that are digital. Yeah.
So how do you how can we contribute to more religious harmony in our families, in our communities? Because there is there's certainly a lot of religious disharmony, and people are suspicious of, being from Europe. People are really suspicious of other people coming in from Muslim cultures, and there's a lot of fear there. So how do we contribute to more religious harmony and understanding among traditions? Do you have any personal experiences of doing that? Maybe someone in your family or in your community, or do you have any examples of how we can contribute to more religious harmony?
Well, this sounds really weird, probably, but I worked for the Defense Language Institute, part of the Department of Defense, US. And it's a language school. And they have, the teachers are from all over the world, all over the world. It could be from Russia, Siberia, Philippines, Mexico, South America, Middle East, India, everywhere, African countries. And they all, in general, the way people get along there is good because they share their traditions, especially their food traditions. And they would have, like the Persian group would have, they would have celebrations of, like, spring is a really big event in their culture. And they would just invite other people, come join us, and they share their food and their tradition. And so you learn about it. And once you learn about it, you appreciate it or not, but you learn about it in a non-threatening way. Nobody there was ever preaching to others, trying to convert, just sharing with others their tradition. And it worked out really well. People got along quite well there. It surprised me. When I first went there, I couldn't believe it. I'd never met so many people from all over the world, especially from the Middle East, Afghanistan. And then once I got to know them and share in their traditions, they were so generous with, then you lose your fear and your judgment. You lose your judgment. So maybe that's the way I don't know. There's some religions in the United States that some of the fundamentalist ones, it would be difficult in those cases, but that was not a problem where I worked. It just, I don't know, it wasn't, they weren't fundamentalist about their religion. They were just sharing it, with others.
No, that sounds really beautiful.
Yeah, it really was.
I'm sorry. I had an experience like that, similar to that, many times by just showing an interest, showing a real interest, a non-judgmental. People do appreciate that, and I enjoy learning. My ex-landlord, he was a Muslim, and he was pretty hardcore actually, and he'd watch this stuff on his computer, and I helped him out with the security cameras, so I was looking at the computer, and I just, I listened, and he was never going to convert me, but it was interesting to just listen, and a lot of his sentiment, it was good. It was good. It was coming from a good place. It turned out he was a criminal, but that's another story. Anyway, I learned a lot. I did.
Yeah, and I think it's really good to focus on, the common ground that is there, and not focus on the differences, because that wouldn't be so. Unless someone invites you, I want to debate this religious point with you. Okay, then of course, then you can do that. But if you're spending time with people, it's much better to just focus on and really water the positive seeds that are there. I think that's important. I was reminded. This is when I was a foreign exchange student in Minnesota when I was 17, 18. So that's why I'm still stuck with a little bit of an American accent, I think. But anyways, I spent that year with living with a really lovely, deeply Christian family, and I always thought that I felt that their religion had been tremendously helpful for them, and they were really good people, all in all. But then maybe it might have been 10 years later or something. I met up with my host father and my host brother in Thailand. I can't remember quite why. They were traveling there and we were traveling there, and then at the same time, so we met up. But anyways, I just remember my host father telling me that the way he was taught in his Christian tradition is that people who are not Christian will go to hell because they don't believe in God, so their eternal damnation is what ensues from that. So, but I remember him telling me that no, and I've changed that view. I no longer believe that to be true. And he said that one of the reasons why I changed that view is that I couldn't imagine you going to hell. So he speaking about myself, because obviously, he must have felt that I was a decent enough person with, good enough ethics and behavior and thinking around things. So he just couldn't square the idea of me going to hell just because I didn't happen to believe in the right God in the right way. So, and I found that really, really moving, because I think that if we can interact with each other in that way, then we can influence each other positively, and the world will just be all the much better for it. So yeah, so I guess the take home of today's session is to really try to bring as much harmony as possible in your interactions with people of other faiths and traditions. Look for the common ground, and in terms of your own practice, really investigate and see whatever I'm doing, is it leading to the very things I mentioned in the beginning? And if they are, then you can trust that you're following a path that is the right one for you. And again, there's no one size fits all. And just also rejoice, just be, because how amazing it is that you've actually found such a path, that you found something that you resonate with you, and that helps you become, a better person, to open your heart, to investigate your mind, to develop your mind, to move towards more compassion, love, and wisdom. How amazing. And sometimes if people ask, you can share that with them. If they don't ask, you just treat them with as much kindness and respect and curiosity and interest as possible, and really strengthen them in whatever their practice or their path is. Yeah, so that's the end of the hour, and I think we should probably let Sheila get on to have her postponed dinner. It's so kind of you to join and facilitate, even though you should be elsewhere and enjoying a nice meal. So thank you for that. But yeah, as a way of wrapping this up, just we can dedicate whatever insights arose from spending this time together, whatever positive energy was generated, and let's dedicate that towards religious harmony in the world. And not just religious harmony, but harmony between all worldviews, if they're atheist or secular, religious, whatever. So may whatever we generated here just really contribute to increased harmony in the world, and may people find ways to be together, accepting each other's differences, and supporting each other in whatever path each individual has chosen to develop their hearts and minds. And yeah, thank you for joining today. And I guess I won't see you next time, or I will see you next time probably, but this is the end of this four session be your own therapist program. And hopefully I'll be back and see you in some other context. It's been my pleasure to tune in on these 4 Mondays, or actually I guess it's Sundays for you. Yeah. Well, so take care, and I will see you around.